Hi, welcome. We're going to light up a little oven and we'll just help you understand a little bit about rocket technology and rocket ovens and how they work. So to start off with, very basically, it consists of three components. A stand which houses the rocket on it, an oven box which is where the air gap is, and I'll explain that to you now, and then an exhaust. So those are the basic three pieces. So when you get an oven like this, you would probably get the box separate from the stand. So you just put the box on the stand and then you put the exhaust on. Then the other part about it is you need an ashtray, which is down at the bottom. So we've just got an ashtray here, and that just slides in underneath there, and that catches all the ash. Yeah, so working from the bottom up, you've got your ashtray and then you've got your grids. For this exercise we're going to use 2 grids. So the thing about the grids is, however big you make the hole, it affects the oven temperature. So if you're making big holes, if we just put one grid in like that, the coals would fall through very quickly and you would get a much higher oven temperature, but it could go up and down quicker. By putting a second grid on and making smaller holes, you can see the coals don't drop through as easily, you'll get a more consistent heat. So we're going to bake, if we were doing pizzas we might just do something like that, but because we're going to bake a few loaves of bread, we're going to put it like this, and it just fits in underneath in like that, and you slide it in. And if you look in through the top over there, you can see that's where the grid is that catches the holes. So the next thing is just a little air vent. It's kind of like a clutch. It just helps air run underneath the wood. So this just gets placed in here like this, and then you would just pack your wood in on top of it like that, and so the air can flow in underneath there. And that just helps with the general airflow, because remember it's a rocket oven, an airflow oven. Then the next piece that we look at is obviously shelving. These ovens have 2 positions for a shelf. So the bottom position is for bread, which we'll use, but there is a top position. But before we put the shelf in, we want to place some old tiles on the bottom. So here's some old ungrazed ceramic tiles, and we just put it in on the bottom of the oven. And that's more or less fine. You don't have to have it absolutely perfect, but it just creates a bit of evenness of heat. Then we put our shelf in. That will sit like that, and then we put the bit of tile in on top of the shelf. Okay, so that's the basic oven setup. So one of the critical things about rocket ovens is that they must be level. If they're not level, what happens is that the heat will run to the highest point, so you won't get an even temperature. So if at any stage you find that the oven's burning at the back or at the front or on the one side, what it means is that your oven's not level. And so we're just going to use some scrap bits of metal, and we're going to level this oven up. That's level, and that's level. Okay, so the oven's level, and now we can go ahead and light it up. So let's talk about the wood for your rocket. Because the rocket oven is an airflow oven, and the air essentially flows around the chamber, you can use any kinds of wood. These are just old bits and pieces. We often use offcuts from pallets or any kind of bits and pieces of wood that you can find, but they just need to be cut into small pieces. So that's really quite a nice size piece there if you have a look. And then all you do is you just feed your oven continuously on an ongoing basis when necessary. And what happens is that the wood burns, it develops coals, the hot air comes over the coals, hits the wood and creates what we call a rocket. So often when you are feeding this, if you feed it correctly, you'll get that roaring sound, or that like sound of air moving very fast that roars. So now it comes to lighting the oven. The normal way is with paper and just with little twigs, but I'm going to do the lazy man way. I'm going to just light up a little piece of blitz. Okay, and once you've got that piece of blitz glowing, you just let it fall down into the middle over there, and then you pack some wood in. So you can see these are fairly small, thin bits of wood, and it's good to start with those. And the idea is that when you pack it in, that you pack a few in sort of straight, and then you pack them across each other. So you see how I'm packing them across at angles, and that enables the air to flow through nicely. And there we are, we've got enough wood in there to get us going, eh? So let's leave it for a while. But if you have a look in here, what you obviously will do is just push the pieces of wood in a little bit as they burn, and then as you keep the gaps there and as you place wood on top, you'll hear that sound. And if you can just hear that sort of rocket sound, you can hear it come on nicely now. So that means that you're getting lots of speed, and the more speed you get, the more temperature you get. One of the other things that's also important is that where the rocket joins the oven box and where the exhaust joins the oven box, make sure it's sealed. If there's large holes in there, or if you're not getting temperature, it means that there are gaps and holes between the oven box and the rocket, or the exhaust and the stand. You do get clay with the oven, and you get fiber. So what you can do is just push the fiber in and seal it with a bit of clay when you get it, and that'll help make the system work better. Alright, so we're ready to put the doughs in the oven. So we've got 3 different size loaves. Here's the big one and the small one. So you can test up. I'm just going to get the other one. Okay, so we're going to pop them in the oven. Let's probably put the big one in the middle. Let's start. And pop that one in there. And put the tiny one in there. So off we go. A little bit of water, some gas, nice bit of steam. And we close up. And we give it about between 22 and 24 minutes for the small one, up to about 35 minutes for the big one. So we'll just go put the timer on. Cool. Okay, so we've had this in for about 25 minutes, so the small loaf will be ready. So I'm just going to pull it out and do a little temperature check. There we go, there's the baby loaf. I'll just shut up for a minute. So basically what a baker knows is that your core temperature's got to be 90 plus. So here's a little thermometer, turn it on, and we can see if it's up to 90. That way it sort of tells us that the dough is, because the color of the outside of a bread can be very misleading. Yeah, it's like 93, 94. So we can take the little loaf out. We'll give the other loaves a little bit longer. Okay. So as long as it's in the 90s, that's like closer to 95, which is super well. And so there we have it. Here's our little basic little loaf thing. You can see over here we've got 3 loaves. There's a nice big farm loaf. Looks delicious. So we'll be eating on that. Here's our standard BREADrev loaf, which is yeah, pretty nice fare. Keep going.